We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
Welcome to the Money Tree Show, where we bring you high-level multifamily investors as well as industry-leading experts. We tease out the skills they've acquired, the habits, and the mindset they've developed to make them ultra-successful in the real estate space. It is our goal to give you the knowledge you need to either start your multifamily journey or expand your current portfolio. Whether you're an active investor or looking for a passive investment to supplement your income, this is the podcast for you.
All right. Hello, everybody. How are you? This is Anthony Vandermeer with my co-host, Matt Damon of the Money Tree Show. Today, we have a great episode for you. We got Francesca and Ryan Byrne, a powerhouse couple. Francesca is a doctor, and Ryan is a former Wall Street guy turned real estate powerhouse. So how are you guys doing today?
We are doing fantastic. Great, Thanks for having us on. It's an honor, a treat.
Oh, you're welcome. We appreciate having you on. So please, let's just jump right into it. Can you tell us your story, how you got into real estate, what you do before real estate, and your current situation?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a full-time practicing physician in pediatric cardiology, and pretty early on, I think even before we got married. Because he was in finance, Wall Street, he kind of keyed me into, investing early and what that would mean long-term wise. And at the time, that meant, stocks, kind of traditional way of doing it. And then, as we kind of got a little older, we started looking into single family investment properties and kind of went down that route. And around that time, I think is when he had transitioned into real estate as well. Then from there, we kind of hit some reasons that we'll probably get into in terms of why we left that business side and started doing more multifamily. And once we saw what that could do, we kind of haven't looked back. But
yeah, I can iterate that. So, I have been a longtime passionate investor. And over analyzing and looking at all the things that we all have access to, which is like these small cap hidden gems, Warren Buffett, the intelligent investor, getting excited about these things. Real estate was an academic, a long journey academically, because I was a single-minded one-man shop, do it all yourself. To get into real estate, especially today, and if you're looking at it from that approach, a single family home in a high appreciating area, what are we looking at now? 1 million, 1.2 million for single level 4-bedroom box. 400, you'll need to scrape together 400,000 in capital to make that happen. So that became academic and got shelved, and you hear these stories, but you can't wrap your head around how do I actually execute and be in real estate. So it was always the target of where we wanted to do and where we wanted to go. We finally ended up there, and then one thing led to another, and here we are in the commercial multifamily space, actively managing over 600 units. We are in close to 1,500 units as investors, and you blink, and it kind of happened pretty fast once we overcome some key hurdles.
Mostly mental hurdles, right?
Mental, and how we approached everything in the space.
I can second what you're saying earlier about, and I'm really excited to get into and dig into this conversation, but what you were saying earlier about the single family residential space being 1 million, 1.2 million, we're all from really expensive markets. It's really hard to break into, and to make money, cash flow off of a single family residential doesn't make sense where we live. I'm in Boston, Anthony's in New York. You guys were in California when you got started, now in Texas. It's really, really hard to make the numbers work in our areas in terms of rentals, especially the smaller they are. Sometimes when you get to bigger ones, bigger units, you certainly can make quite a bit of money in that regard. So talk to us about, how'd you get into your first real estate transaction? What did that look like? And what made you, Ryan, decide that, hey, listen, this is the right move? I've been a stock investor for a really long time, but I'm thinking that maybe, there's another avenue.
Yeah, that came through mentorship. Through real estate sales, and going down the sales avenue, I had left banking, financial analysis, and that work to get into real estate. Real estate sales for me was sort of the gateway to get closer to real estate investing. I thought that was going to put me closer to the deals and make it more likely that I would come across things that I can invest in and have that, that synergy working for me. A light bulb had to go off on how real estate works, where the returns come from, and how I was thinking about it all incorrectly. I was thinking about buying houses and slapping on a bedroom, and all of a sudden now I have the comp of a 3-bedroom house, and that's what it was going to take. Looking at areas that I could afford, right, and not in the areas that were appreciating. And then when you realize, or you discover that all of the returns and all of the gains in real estate come from appreciation. Cash flow's nice, right? But at the end of the day, after 10 and 20 years, appreciation outstrips cash flow on a multiple of like 20, 30, 40 to 1. I mean, it's not even close. Along the way, I mean, it took us a long time. We're kind of moving around to expensive cities where it didn't seem possible. I mean, I was in Manhattan, we were in San Francisco, we ended up in Southern California, where we ended up making our first purchase, and then a second purchase. We got an appreciating market, but a little more affordable, with Scottsdale, Arizona, and that's how we started our journey. Was single family, another single family, another single family.
And we stuck to that because that was what we could understand, could wrap our heads around. We knew people that were doing that, and it was like, okay, well, we can slowly, ramp up in this way. And so we thought that was the only way to do it. We are well aware of the benefits of multifamily, and I couldn't see how or any of that worked. It was like 20 unit building, and we kind of knew or heard of people, and we just figured that something that we didn't have access to, they had access to. So we even started looking at like owner occupied quads to get the financing to do the little house hack. I mean, we didn't go that route, but I'm just thinking that like he would have though. Let me just tell this quick story. We had, I think, a 6-month-old at the time, and we're looking at these duplexes and quadplexes, which sometimes aren't in the best neighborhoods, right? And he's showing me and saying, okay, so we would live there, and then we would rent these 3 out. And I'm just thinking,
you're going by the numbers. I don't
really
think
is this the only way to do this? And,
had we gone down that route, our marriage might be in jeopardy. I mean, I've been thinking about that. It was like neighboring with your tenants. For some people, there it was a better way. I just didn't know how it worked at the time.
I had the exact same conversation with my wife, and she did the exact same thing Francesca did, and she said, "Hell no, sorry, we're not doing that." So I think a single family, what it does sometimes, because you guys mentioned it earlier, is it gets you over getting over mental hurdles, right? So just buying a home, renting it out, and seeing the numbers, seeing that it can produce profit, it can produce appreciation, will get you over that first mental hurdle. I mean, talk a little bit. I'd love to hear, Francesca, you said you're a pediatric cardiologist. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
So that's got to be a little bit of an intense job in itself. Obviously, you got to be very focused. You're obviously more on the passive side. I know Ryan does, is really in the day-to-day work. Speak to me a little bit about yourself and maybe your colleagues as far as, being a passive investor, and still having that full-time job, especially a full-time job where you really do have to be fully focused when you're doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You do. It's definitely very, very intense. And there's a lot of colleagues or people that are in very similar situations to me where we like what we do. It's very intense. We're fortunate that we make a good income, but then, you want to deploy your earnings in a meaningful way, and in a way that means that I'm not going to be working until I'm 75 years old, which, unfortunately a lot of people end up doing, even physicians, one, because they love it, but two, because maybe they haven't managed and set themselves up to potentially retire earlier than that. And so by being of that mindset and more passive, I think it helps me be able to talk to other, colleagues and physicians and say, you love your job, you want to keep doing that, but you want to do it on your terms or without the stress of, getting your kids through college or what it may be, and that there's this passive way to put your money to work for you while you're still focusing on, your day to day and what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of that too is like you guys had the experience of like you started down a path, which was like, let's invest out of state in single family and let's try that out. And I'm sure you guys probably did pretty well with that. But then you discovered a whole new product, right?
Yeah.
And you always had heard that like multifamily is a thing. We can be part of this. How do we become part of it? And then suddenly you figured out it's more of a mental change. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going after the same thing, right? We want a good return on our money, and we don't want to take a lot of risk in doing so, and we don't want the added stress of investing in general. People have an idea of what single family residential looks like on paper, and they're great investments. We did well by them, but there's a lot of things that have happened to people, our neighbors. For example, they became accidental landlords, right? They had a baby, they moved out of the house. Let's just rent it. Like, why would we sell this? We're in a great thing. COVID hits, you have a non-paying tenant, and now him and his wife are in the situation where he basically told me, I'm never doing real estate again, regardless of the money he made along the way, because
the headaches
it's headaches. They don't cash flow great. It's like you pull off $100, $200 a month. You're like, yeah, we're in the cash flow positive. You put 20% down in this high appreciating area. 3 years later, you're getting $200 a door a month. And then the roof needs to be replaced. Right? The bathroom flooded, kitchen, something happened to the kitchen. Tenant lost their job. Now what do you have? You have 1, 2, 3, 4 mortgages, and you're a W-2. Talk about stress. I mean, we found ourselves in that situation. It's like, what's going to happen if something happens over here or here? Like, we can afford like one of these, but how many tens of thousands of dollars do we need to keep in the account to make do on these windfalls? And then, those reasons, among others, your personal balance sheet, right? We were in a position where we're getting single family, and then our lender says, that new home, that new bigger home you want to buy, you can do that, but you're not going to be able to make this investment too. And it's like, why not? We have the money. It's like debt to income ratio, and like, huh?
Yeah, never heard of that. What do you mean?
What are you talking about? And now, because even though you're doing these safe and smart things, and you have the money to do it, you have the safety net of the cash on the side, your personal balance sheet starts getting squeezed. You're in a different credit category.
That forced our hand. I think that's
forced us.
Fortunately, what forced us in. And then we started off as the passive, limited partner type investors, and then really saw that opportunity and met people through that then launched us to where we are now. So.
Yeah. And so when we move to multifamily, you're in it, you're looking at it even more closely than you ever have before. I mean, the risk profile of that investment drops drastically, and the returns goes from a speculative return sort of play to something that you have a lot of control over, right? It's as active managers, when we can identify, if we can push the flows, the income of an apartment building up, we are driving up the value of that asset, and we can identify those things before we even purchase the property. Whereas in single family space, you're kind of like looking at your neighbor's house and you're like, okay, I think we're doing good. And I hope the next 5 years looks like the last 5 years. And that's kind of the speculative play, which is great. But now we're in a category, an asset class where we have more certainty, much higher returns, and way more safeguards. I mean, we could lose on a lot of the assets that we own, 30 to 24%, of our tenants, and still be able to operate it and make our debt payments. Think about that. And we're not affecting our personal balance sheet. And because we have a team in place, it is truly passive, actively managed on our side. It takes a ton of work. But as investors, as Francesca's investors, she knows that everything's taken care of. She'll never get a call about a toilet. She'll never get a call from the property manager. Those come to me, and these are solvable problems because you have eyes on the ground and people doing the work. So that's it. That was the true eye opener, and why, like, once we get going on this, then we have the second step in this process is like, how do we include our friends and family in this? Because this it's wrong to keep it to yourself, right? Because
so you're doing single family, you go to limited partnerships, you're doing a bunch of those, and just to double click on it, you're talking forced appreciation before, which is one of mine and Matt's favorite things, which is you're taking a multifamily and you increase that NOI, you're increasing the value, as opposed to dealing with market conditions, market appreciation, where you're just hoping your neighbor's house goes for $100,000 more. So now you understand the LP side, you're loving it. At that point, do you start transitioning into becoming more active and creating your own deals? Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yes. Once we moved into that space, we started communicating with people like yourselves who are closer to doing it in real time. Someone explained, they're presenting the deals, how they work, kind of removing the mystery of it for us, participating as limited partners in these deals. We provide the equity and they are actively managing it, and we get the returns. These are people that we knew. They came from the same background that we did. And then it was like, what?
They're doing it.
Wait a minute. Like, this guy is bringing me 100 units right now. And it's like, those types of things, like, okay, let's be a part of this.
Became tangible.
Yeah. And it takes a phone call and seeing where our strengths can align together and form a partnership, where we find ourselves in a position that we're doing it ourselves.
In our heads, we like to play this thing of like, if only I get this experience, if only I'm here, if only I can get to that level. And truly what you're finding is what you found is, we have those skills. We have management skills. We have leadership skills. We have all these things. We are ready for that next step. We just didn't realize it. It wasn't until you guys met someone that's doing this. I actually want to go back to an earlier point that you said, Ryan. You kind of glossed over it.
Okay.
You guys have 600 units. 120 of those units could be vacant, and you guys are not losing cash. And that, I think, is really important that we want to get back to. This is the beauty of why multifamily can be such a great asset to invest in. You have security that a lot of assets don't have. I mean, 20% vacancy, and you're still able to pay your bills. You're still able to keep the buildings up to some extent, and they're not slipping away. Certainly it's not where you want to be, right? We don't run buildings that are 20% vacant, right? We want 100% occupancy all the time, right? That means we got checks coming out to all of us investors and things are going well. That's exactly where we want to be. But in terms of taking a loss, taking a hit, speed bump in the road, that's a pretty healthy speed bump,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And part of multifamily, I don't want to, put the rosiest picture of it's this dreamland of of operationally, like as soon as we acquire a property, that's when our problems first begin, but they're all solvable problems.
Yep.
Right? And we work with people. I mean, we're at a point now where we have property management in-house. Our COO, who oversees everything that we do, comes with 20 years in the commercial multifamily property management space, worked for a corporate outfit, and now is contracted with us. So sometimes when you don't have that experience, you can get to a point where you can find the experience and bring it into what you're doing. She's killing it from her perspective. She gets to run her own little property management thing instead of we're doing it for a W-2. And so that would be one example of, not trying to have it all figured out by yourself. Like, we didn't need to reinvent the wheel. There's people who specialize in property management who you definitely want to start reaching out to. I mean, sometimes in my mind, because we appreciate that person so much, it's almost like, should people be looking for a deal first, or should people be looking for this property management person first? Because it's kind of a big thing.
Well, it's a good point. And if you have someone that is running your properties and not pulling you into too many fires, then you can go look for more deals, right? So you're right. It's like,
freeze up.
That makes perfect sense. Do you guys have I know you got, you both have a great kind of buy box criteria. I've heard, Ryan, I've heard you discuss yours at various meetings you've been at. And you guys are unlike me. Listen, me and Matt, we're in Worcester, Massachusetts, and New York. Cool market, sure, but you guys are in like Charleston and Augusta, and you guys are in some very cool markets, and also obviously just huge growth markets. I was in Charleston visiting my brother a few months ago, and the place is booming, as you know. Do you have a specific criteria you look for? Because I know you're in Texas, so how do you find these markets, and what's your criteria for that?
Yeah, the criteria for where we invest. We have to have landlord friendly. It alleviates the operational risk for us as owners and operators to not have to worry about the unknowns that can come your way, given how that state kind of works, right? The legal laws and all of that. So we tend to be in places and look in places like Texas, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Our partners are also close to the activity. Two of our partners are in Charleston. Helpful to have boots on the ground near the assets that you're buying, so we can hit all of our assets in one day. We can visit every single one in one day. We do that 4 times a year. When we get down to the specifics of the opportunity, I mean, we really cherry pick. I mean, we're going for these no-brainers where it's like you almost do a double take, and we ask other people who are underwriting and looking at these deals, what am I missing? Is it really, am I really looking at this right? So what that means for us is that we stick to these value add opportunities where it's a great asset in a great location, and it's just poorly managed, mismanaged, or the manager is absent. And they exist. They're out there. They're all over the place. They tend to be in that 70 to 150 unit range, and you'll find a 30-year owner who's now 60, 70, doing a lot of the work himself, trying to make that. I mean, just imagine that. That was our Augusta acquisition, 75 units. Seller was diagnosed with cancer, shoring up his estate, but before that, I mean, he's self-managing. So when you're self-managing, you're letting things fall through the crack. Yeah,
there's going to be limitations to what you can do. The
tenants aren't being taken care of. The property's not being taken care of. You can't push rents because the tenants aren't happy. You can't push rents because you don't have a person in place to look at lease applications, to do background checks, to show the units. So you have a great asset and a great location, but it's not performing. We, with our team and our system, can acquire that asset, put our team, put our people in place. It's big enough that we can actually have people on site, a property manager on site, a maintenance person on site, and we can start taking care of the tenants. We can start taking care of the asset, and the market rewards you for that. And it rewards you handsomely. I mean, there's a great demand for a very simple expectation, like give us a decent place to live, right?
Right. Fix the things that are broken. We want them fixed. We want to pay for, high quality places to live in. I mean, that's one of the things that we've run into countless times. People don't mind paying for more when they have a landlord in place that's taking care of their basic needs. You got something broken, it gets fixed. They tend to appreciate that. Like when we took over our last building, we found a guy who had his refrigerator wasn't working for 4 years. And he was going grocery shopping 3 times a week because he'd put his stuff in there and keep it just cool enough. But if it lasted more than a day or two in there, it was moldy and nasty and really gross. We came in, the first thing we did was bought him a new fridge. The guy loves us. Okay, rent is going up a little bit, but hey, I got a brand new fridge, and I can actually don't have to live in the grocery store essentially because I'm going there so frequently. So you take care of your people, and I think it tends to be so, and you guys can speak to this probably better than we can. It's like your tenants are okay with it. They're fine with it.
Absolutely. They deserve it. I mean, it's like basically being human. I mean, like how can you not? You have an obligation as an owner and operator to provide decent housing to people. Like, I mean, come on. And you can do it easily. You budget and prepare for it, and you make it happen. And then that's where the real opportunity is.
Right. And then implementing the systems, whether it be an online payment platform that's out there, an online maintenance portal, those sort of systems that can track and allow you guys to scale effectively. These sort of things, the mom and pop operators don't often have these sort of systems. And so you guys are coming in, you guys are implementing these things. You're bringing change, you're bringing true value add to these folks, not just in terms of construction, but also in terms of operations.
And I think we learned too that those types of operations, it seems counterintuitive, on the front side, but that it becomes more, easier to do when you scale, to that size. When you're trying to do it with quadplexes or even 10, like you can't do that. And I think for us making that leap to say, no, it's going to be easier if we get more units didn't make sense. But then once you actually see it, it's like, okay, that's why.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, to your point, Francesca, if you have 100 units, you can hire a repairman to be there full time, 100% of the time. No more waiting for that repair person to show up on their schedule. Now you own you. That's an employee of yours. Your time is demanded by so helps out a ton.
Yeah.
And when you are dedicated and you're full time and you're underwriting a deal a day, full disclosure, it took us a long time to get there. People are saying nothing works. It's like, okay, did you underwrite 100 deals yet? It's like, oh, okay. That's why. I mean, we underwrote 300 deals before we did something. And once you do that deal, so it was that deal, it was a neighboring deal, same asset class, 75 units and 70 units. A thing of events sort of magically happened where one connection in a relationship and a conversation leads to your next, the neighbor hears about it. You get his units, the broker, all of a sudden you move way up on the broker list. You're not looking through the listings of things out there on the internet or things that people have already picked through. You become established operators. You're kind of getting the best of the best at that point. It makes, again, everything easier, and that growth can be, I'm gonna say explosive, but it's like, whoa, what happened here?
But it took a lot of work. You say it was.
Well, if I remember correctly, sorry, go ahead, Frank. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, it feels like it did happen overnight, but it didn't. It took a lot of work, of no action, and then but it's
Sure.
because of that it then snowballed like that.
I
Yes.
wouldn't even call it no action. It's not no action. It's training grounds. You had your training wheels on,
I like
and
that
you're building
better.
your foundation, right? So, listeners, if you're just starting out in real estate, take that back. Ryan and Francesca, they underwrote 100 deals before taking action on their first deal. When I in the single family space, when I had first started out in the single family space, I had a whiteboard, and for every offer and analysis I put up, we ticked it up there. This is how many properties we've analyzed. This is how many no's to the offers we got. And we learned to celebrate our no's because we only play to win, right? We're not accepting a deal that's average. We're not accepting a deal that's not going to make us money. We're playing to win. And so when Ryan sees a deal come across his plate that he says, hey, listen, I've underwrote 98 of these things. That one's a winner.
Yeah.
It's because you've gone through and you've done the work of building out to understand what is a winner. What's winning qualities look like in an apartment complex, and you built out a system of that.
Yeah, and the more attractive the market is, the more you're going to have to look at, and
Right.
the harder it's going to be to break through. Okay, so it's maybe it's 100 deals in Tennessee, and in Dallas maybe it's 300 deals. But the opportunities exist in every single market. It might take a little more grinding to find it. And then once you find it, you're like, this is the one I read about in the book. It's like it does
The
exist.
needle in the haystack.
Because you almost think you're doing something wrong, right? And I think Bill Hamm kind of did it best. It's like when you are underwriting deals and 99% of them suck, it's not because you're doing anything wrong. You're doing something exactly right.
Yep. Usually when we get an accepted offer, we go, oh shit, what did we miss?
Right.
And then we're scrubbing back through it, and we're like, we messed something up, and it turns out, hey, listen, we didn't. We just did the right thing. We went through the process the way you're supposed to go through it.
Right.
So to answer your question, buy right criteria. We stay away from the war zones. We stay away from these heavy lift constructions, major distressed properties. We're looking for these operational solutions to a system that we've already built, right? So we have the system, we have the people, and that's all these assets need. It's great when we can pick up an asset, not do anything to it, and know that it'll still be a great investment. So the investments, we want them to pencil as if everything goes wrong, it takes way longer than expected, we get below market rents, and then the market is not there to give us any rent growth. We want that to be more attractive to what most investors have in front of them. If we can make it work in that scenario for us and our investors, that's the one that we take on, and we sell that worst case scenario. That's the one we pitch. And then you guys know how multifamily works. You know how the refi game works. When you start adding these elements, and then also you happen to be in a market with 5% rent growth, 7, 10. I mean, now you're getting, you're just kind of, the investors that are with you, it's like, whoa, okay. That's when they start calling up their brother and sister. It might take a year or two for them to get it, but we get it. We know where the real potential in all this lies, and it's a game changer. It's a really big deal. We're not talking about a 20% average annual return. We're talking many times that.
Awesome. So what's your next 5 years looking like? Do you have a specific goal in mind? Does it just keep collecting deals? where are you looking to go?
If I could think of a question I didn't want to answer, I think it'd be that one. Because even a year ago, someone asked me, or maybe 3 years ago when we started this journey, what is your goal? It's like, I want to do my first deal.
Yeah.
Like that was it. Right. And then a year after that question, we're in a position of doing multiple deals in a way that we didn't even imagine. We didn't imagine a partnership. We didn't imagine working with our friends and family. We didn't imagine expanding our opportunities to the physicians network who also are trying to achieve the same goal that we are. We didn't imagine any of this. So right now it's kind of like, let's do the best absolute job with the next thing that we have in front of us. And kind of take it from there. So it's not like it's hard to think about goals when we're in a spot where we didn't imagine we would be 3, 5, 7 years ago, because we don't know exactly where this will take us. I mean, the things that we're looking at today weren't even available to us a year ago. I mean, it's like you do this long enough, and then all of a sudden the landscape changes, right? It's like you go from being the second that Augusta deal. I mean, we did follow-up calls for 4 months because we weren't even the best offer. We were just like, hey, how's everything going? You guys gonna do it? And like that and that. And so, and now the script is flipped, where the broker is putting the stuff that we've been looking for all that time, like right in front of us. Like, hey, I don't know if this will go to market or not. I think the seller is thinking about selling. And then we're in contact with that broker over a year, and then it's sort of like we're getting a deal that's not even available to the marketplace. So
forget the next 5 years. I mean, let's talk about the next 5 days, 5 months. You have a current deal that's going on right now, correct?
Yeah. And it's a hectic time. You put the deal together, and you put the team in place. And this is the kind of the most fun. It's the most stressful. You're trying to reach all the people that wanted to be reached the next time you had an opportunity to make this thing happen. And it's exciting because what it is, and you're happy to share it with people. And we have enthusiasm about it as investors. So, it's kind of like we get to share something with people that we wish people would have shared with us 20 years ago, when we were kind of in that position, right? Where you had the job and you had the money and you want to invest capital, you want a good return, but you don't like all this risky nonsense that's out there, or the speculative play. It's great to be able to offer that to people. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but
absolutely.
Yeah,
that's great.
Do you have a moment that you look back on, you're like just so proud of?
I appreciate what we set up, and how Francesca and I can work together, as a unit, as a family. What we're building is legacy. It's something that our children they'll definitely benefit from. The assets that we invest in the multifamily space are going to benefit us and our family for decades to come. That's the way we set it up. It's something that we can offer and teach to them. So I do love that, because it was always kind of an idea, but like a family business, what does it look like? How do you make it work? Can we work together? I mean, finance, quant in a position, it's like, where would we ever cross paths? And now we're both building something together as a family unit. I'm really proud of that.
How about you, Francesca?
I mean, honestly, I think it was the first deal where we were, more on the active side, and we had a number goal of capital that we wanted to raise or needed to raise, and then just started making those phone calls, having those conversations, and then seeing the reception that we got from other hardworking professionals that said, wow, yes, help us get into this. And then seeing how well we could do with that, and how people actually appreciated it, because at first I think I was a little timid to reach out and to do that. But then when you see that people want this and want to participate, and then, surpassing that goal just on that very first raise, it was like, wow, okay, there's people out there that want this, and we are able to bring it to them and communicate it. And so that was a pretty awesome feeling.
Yeah. And I love, because I did have a moment where we just kind of blinked, and you look at your assets, or you look at your balance sheet, and you're like, how did this happen? And we started with, I guess, a leap of, we just got in the game. Like we took action. In a small way with a single family purchase, but we also took action as limited partners learning while we were earning. And even those limited partner positions and the limited partner positions that we get to offer to investors are better than anything that we did by ourselves. People think it's like, oh, there can't be that great if you're not doing everything yourself. It's not the case at all. Even for our limited partnership positions or our passive positions that are on our balance sheet, and it's very slow and boring in the beginning. Nothing's happening. You're like you may be negative cash flow on some of your personal real estate, but things happen, and it takes a little bit of time to happen. And that 5-year mark, I think it was 5 years of doing this type of stuff, where we looked and it's like, wow, how did that happen?
Right.
And it's nothing that you can do with allocating excess capital from your W-2 into a 401k or into a mutual fund.
Yeah.
We did that for decades, and there's no comparison, right? I mean, it's just, it's different.
We could do a whole episode on that, not to cut you off, Matt, but just because I'm in it as well. It's that 401k fallacy, where you're like, oh, if I just maxed it out, and then you actually do the math, and you're like, well, if I max this thing out for 40 years, it's still not all that much money, So it's amazing. We want to be conscious of you guys' time. I feel like we just scratched the surface on this, so we'd love to have you guys back. But please, tell the listeners where they can find you and what's the best way to reach you and your company information and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we are happy to communicate with anyone who's curious and wants to learn more about what we do and how we do it. It's a enrich and inform relationship that we have with a lot of our investors. You go to cashflowcapitalclub.com. You can request an invitation. We'll have a quick chat. We do work with accredited and non-accredited investors. Many of our opportunities are available for $50,000. We've helped people move Roth IRA, 401k funds into self-direct plans so that they can invest and participate that way. We try to make this doable for everyone, and join the journey with us. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely.
Guys, so good having you on the show. This has been really helpful, and I love hearing your story. Again, 0 to 600 units is such a short period of time. Thank you for joining us, guys. We really enjoyed having you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Money Tree Show. We hope to inspire you to achieve financial freedom. To see a sample real estate deal, head over to www.themoneytreeshow.com.